Adhikacharya Stuttarashata Sri Srimad. His divine whole world to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Nitai Gopri Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottama Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayen Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 19. This is a new chapter. King Yayati achieves liberation. I'll read the summary of the chapter, then we will discuss the first two verses. Chapter summary is as follows. This 19th chapter describes how Maharaj Yayati achieved liberation after he recounted the figurative story of the he-goat and she-goat. After many years of sexual relationships and enjoyment in the material world, King Yayati finally became disgusted with such materialistic happiness. When satiated with material enjoyment, he devised a story of a he-goat and she-goat corresponding to his own life and narrated the story before his beloved Devayani. The story is as follows. Once upon a time, while a goat was searching in a forest for different types of vegetables to eat, by chance he came to a well in which he saw a she-goat. He became attracted to this she-goat and somehow or other delivered her from the well, and thus they were united. One day thereafter, when the she-goat saw the he-goat enjoying sex with another she-goat, she became angry, abandoned the he-goat, and returned to her Brahmana owner, to whom she described her husband's behavior. The Brahmana became very angry and cursed the he-goat to lose his sexual power. Thereupon the he-goat begged the Brahmana's pardon and was given back the power for sex. Then the he-goat enjoyed sex with the she-goat for many years, but still he was not satisfied. If one is lusty and greedy, even the total stock of gold in this world cannot satisfy one's lusty desires. These desires are like a fire. One may pour clarified butter on a blazing fire, but one cannot expect the fire to be extinguished. To extinguish such a fire, one must adopt a different process. The Shastra therefore advises that by intelligence one renounce the life of enjoyment. Without great endeavor, those with a poor fund of knowledge cannot give up sense enjoyment, especially in relation to sex, because a beautiful woman bewilders even the most learned man. King Yayati, however, renounced worldly life and divided his property among his sons. He personally adopted the life of a mendicant or sannyasi, giving up all attraction to material enjoyment, and engaged himself fully in devotional service to the Lord. Thus he attained perfection. Later, when his beloved wife Devayani was freed from her mistaken way of life, She also engaged herself in the devotional service of the Lord. That's the end of the summary. Text 1, kindly repeat after me. Sri Shuka Vacha Saha Itham Acharan Kaman Saitham Acharan Kaman Saitham Acharan Kaman Straino Apahnavam Atmanaha Strainopanapaham Strainopanavam Atmanaha Strainopahnavaम् Atmanaha Buddhva Priyayai Nirvinna Buddhva Priyayai Nirvinna Buddhva Priyayai Nirvinna Gatham Etam Agayata Gathametam Agayata Gathametam Agayata Sri Shuka Uvacha Sayitham Acharan Kaman Strainopahnavamatmanaha Buddhva Priyayai Nirvinna Gathametam Agayata Sri Shuka Vacha Sayitham Acharan Kaman Strainopahnavamatmanaha Buddhva Priyayai Nirvinna Gathametam Agayata Sri Shuka Vacha Aitam Acharan Kaman Strainopahnavamatmanaha Buddhva Priyayai Nirvinna Gathametam Agayata Sri Shuka Vacha Saitam Acharan Kaman Strainopahnavamatmanaha Buddhva Priyayai Nirvinna Gathametam Agayata Sri Shuka Uvacha Sri Shukadev Goswami said, Saha Maharajayati Itham, in this way, Acharan, behaving, Kaman, in regard to lusty desires, Strainaha, very much attached to woman, Apahnavam, counteraction, Atmanaha, of his own welfare, Buddhva, understanding with intelligence, Priyayai, unto his beloved wife, Devayani, Nirvinnaha, disgusted, Gatham, story, Etam, this, as follows, Agayata, narrated. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Shukadev Goswami said, O Maharaj Parikshit, Yayati was very much attached to woman. In due course of time, however, When disgusted with sexual enjoyment and its bad effects, he renounced this way of life and narrated the following story to his beloved wife. Please repeat this translation after me. Shukadeva Goswami said, O Maharaj Parikshit, Yayati was very much attached to women. In due course of time, however, when disgusted with sexual enjoyment and its bad effects, he renounced this way of life and narrated the following story to his beloved wife. Text number 2, I'll read by myself. Shrunu bhargavi amum gatham madvidha charitam bhuvi धीरा यस्यानुशोचन्ति vane grama nivasinaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation: My dearly beloved wife, daughter of Shukracharya, in this world there was someone exactly like me. Please listen as I narrate the history of his life. By hearing about the life of such a householder, those who have retired from householder life always lament. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Persons who live in the village or town are called Grama Nivasi, and those who live in the forest are called Vanavasi or Vanaprastha. The Vanaprasthas who have retired from family life generally lament about their past family life because it engaged them in trying to fulfill lusty desires. Prahlad Maharaj said that one should retire from family life as soon as possible, and he described family life as the darkest well. Hitvatmapatam griham andhakupam. If one continuously or permanently concentrates on living with his family, he should be understood to be killing himself. In the Vedic civilization, therefore, it is recommended that one retire from family life at the end of his 50th year and go to Vana, the forest. When he becomes expert or accustomed to forest life or retired life as a Vanaprastha, he should accept sannyas. Vanam gato yad harimashrayeta. Sannyasa means accepting unalloyed engagement in the service of the Lord. Vedic civilization therefore recommends 4 different stages of life: brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. One should be very much ashamed of remaining a householder and not promoting oneself to the 2 higher stages, namely vanaprastha and sannyas. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this description of Yayati's life is very, very instructive for all of us. And therefore, Shukadeva Goswami is narrating this history. So after describing Yayati's attempt to enjoy life with his wife, family life, Now, the description is how Yayati became disgusted with such enjoyment. So, Shukadeva Goswami is telling Yayati was very much attached to woman. So, therefore, he tried to enjoy to the maximum extent possible. In due course of time, however, when disgusted with sexual enjoyment and its bad effects, not only is such enjoyment disgusting by itself, but also it has got very bad effects. It makes one frustrated. It makes one completely morose. It makes one unhappy, actually. It's the opposite of what one expects. Somebody may expect that by trying to enjoy materially, one may become happy. But as the scriptures describe, that happiness is flickering, chapala sukha. Chapala means very, very short duration, momentary. It is momentary. So this momentary happiness is also the reason why people try harder to squeeze out more and more happiness, thinking that I not tried enough or I not tried properly to squeeze out enjoyment out of some material endeavor. And they try harder, they try in different ways. They think they are making some mistake. But actually, by attempting to enjoy in different ways, even using one's intelligence, even by pious methods, this doesn't apply to sinful way of life. Even by pious methods, if one tries to enjoy materially, the characteristic of material enjoyment is it is momentary, flickering happiness. Flickering means also it will go away. And momentary means it lasts for very little time. So therefore, the result of such an experience, when one repeatedly tries and fails, then if the intelligence is awakened, then one tries to renounce such a way of life. So, it is described here, when disgusted with sexual enjoyment and its bad effects, he renounced this way of life. And not only he renounced, but he also narrated the following story to his beloved wife. He wanted to enlighten his wife also. This is the advantage of chastity. Because women, by their very nature, they are not sufficiently intelligent to realize the spiritual truth by their own endeavor. So then how do they get spiritual realization? It is by following the scriptural directions that one simply has to faithfully serve the father in young age, the husband in the middle age, and the grown-up son or guardian in the old age. And simply by doing this, they get self-realization. And we can see in this case, Devayani, she was very, very chaste wife. So she engaged in the service of her husband. But when the husband got realization, because his wife was very chaste, so he tried to enlighten her by telling this story. So the second verse says, my dearly beloved wife, daughter of Shukracharya. Devayani was not ordinary woman. She was the daughter of Shukracharya. Who Shukracharya? Shukracharya is described as Bhargava Brahmana. Bhargava Brahmana means is a descendant of Bhrigu Rishi. Bhrigu Rishi is very, very exalted sage in the Vedic history. So the descendant of Bhrigu dynasty, they're called Bhargava Brahmanas, the seminal descendants. And Shukracharya was very, very, very intelligent. And he was very powerful also. He was very capable. He had that Sanjeevani mantra, which he could use for reviving somebody who had died untimely and the body was intact. Such a person's life could be revived by Shukracharya. So Shukracharya consequently accepted the post of being the spiritual master of the demons. So such a powerful Brahmana, his daughter Devayani. So she is no ordinary woman. So being blessed with to take birth as the daughter of such a intelligent and very powerful and austere Brahmana, and also being married to a great king, Yayati, the emperor of the world. She was fortunate to herself become self-realized simply by faithfully serving her husband, her father in the beginning and later on her husband. Simply by serving them, she also became self-realized. So, Jayati is narrating a story to his wife. Please listen as I narrate the history of this life of someone exactly like me. Basically, he's telling about his own life, but he's putting it in the form of a story. When told in the form of a story, it is attractive and very instructive. The interest in hearing and learning is more when the same narration is in the form of a story. By hearing about the life of such a householder, those who have retired from householder life always lament. Dhira yasya anushochanti vane grama nivasinaha. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, people who live in the village or town are called grama nivasi. Grama nivasi. Those who are living in a village or a town. And those who live in the forest are called vanavasi or vanaprastha. So what's the difference? The scriptures say that depending on the type of residence, one is influenced by the different gunas, or one can even be immune to the influence of the gunas. If one lives in a place where a liquor shop or a brothel where extremely sinful activities are carried out. Then one is living in a place which is dominated by the mode of ignorance. It's a tamasic place. If one lives in a town or a village or a city, one is living in the mode of passion. Not living in the mode of passion, one is living in a place whose influence is to infect one with the mode of passion. Rajoguna, it's a Rajasic place. And if one lives in the forest, that is living in a place which is predominantly in the mode of goodness, Sattvic place, forest. And if one lives in a temple or a holy sacred place like Vrindavan, then one is living in a transcendental place. One is living in a place which is free from the influence of the gunas. Nirguna. That's why these transcendental places are called Dhamma. Dhamma means it is saturated spiritually, and therefore there is no touch of the modes of material nature, even though in the material world. So the difference between Grama Nivasi and Vanavasi is Grama Nivasi is subject to the influence of the mode of passion, and Vanavasi is subject to the influence of the mode of goodness. So of the three gunas, the best of the three is Sattva Guna. And it is recommended that at least someone who has got the human form of life should try to overcome the lower modes, Tamoguna and Rajoguna, and at least elevate oneself to Sattva Guna. Why? Because Bhagavatam says, Sattvam yad Brahma Darshanam. When one comes to the mode of goodness, there is a possibility that one will realize the spiritual truth, the spiritual nature, the spiritual reality. Otherwise, in Rajoguna and Tamoguna, there is no possibility of any spiritual understanding. There should be little Sattva-guna at least to begin to understand what is spirit, what is Atma, who is God, what is transcendence. Brahma Jignasa begins only when there is at least little Sattva-guna. Without Sattva-guna, Brahma Jignasa is impossible among the three guna sattvas. So, therefore, the Varnashrama system, it is recommended that one's life be divided into four different stages. The beginning stage, Brahmacharya, then Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas. So Brahmacharya is training to actually understand what is our real nature, what is the goal of life, what is the special significance of this human form of body, etc. So after getting educated, enlightened, trained, one may enter Grihastha if one is unable to remain an Aishtika Brahmachari. And even entering the Grihastha, Grihastha means different from a Grihamedi. Grihamedi means, Grihamedi is also a householder, but the center of one's life is how to enjoy in family life, sense gratification. So Grihamedis take it like, oh, it is a good arrangement for very nice enjoyment of sense gratification. But Grihastha life is one lives in a family with other family members, but the center is Krishna. So all the family members are cooperating, living together simply for the sake of devotional service to Krishna. Such a life is called life of a grihastha. It is not ordinary householder life. It is a divine householder life, grihastha ashrama. Ashrama means there is spiritual shelter. It is not just an ordinary roof over the head or some ordinary arrangement for convenience sake of managing one's livelihood. No, it is actually a divine shelter where one continues to make spiritual advancement even after brahmacharya stage. Then one cannot remain permanently a householder, or rest of the life one cannot remain a householder, because even though the center of one's life is Krishna in divine householder life, grihastha ashrama, still one has to retire from householder duties in order to become more serious, or rather better engaged in devotional service. Householder life, there is compromise that one cannot fully engage in devotional service in householder life because one has got householder duties. So duty should not be neglected in householder life. That is also the instruction of the Shastra. One has to take responsibility. So the householder's duties have to be performed, but not for rest of the life, because when the children are grown up, they don't require any more support. So when the children are grown up and they are able to manage themselves independently of the support of the parents, then the parents have to retire. That retirement is called vanaprastha. Literally means going to the forest, but it is not merely going to the forest, as explained by Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj says, Hitvatmapatam gruhamandakupam vanam gato yad harimashrayeta. This householder life, if one is not careful to properly engage in devotional service even while living as a householder, then it becomes a dark well, andhakupam. Dark well means, the example is given in the forest. If there is a well which is dried up and not being used, then such a well, there will be so much of weeds and grass which will grow and completely cover the well. So the well gets covered and one cannot distinguish that well from the normal ground. So while walking in the forest, if one is not walking in the proper forest path, goes off the forest track, then even if one is walking on firm ground, suddenly, without knowing that there is a blind well, one falls down in this blind well, dried up well. And because it is so thickly covered, even if somebody cries for help, then one may not get any help. One simply has to suffer and die in that blind well, being trapped there. Because forest is a remote place. There may be nobody who will be able to hear. Or even if some buddy is there, when they hear some voice coming, feeble voice, they may not be able to find out who is calling from where. So thickly the well may be covered. And in this way, there is a very remote possibility of somebody being rescued. So therefore, one should be careful that one doesn't get entangled in family life, because entanglement is so very difficult to come out of, that even if one sincerely tries to perform all the duties very nicely, if the children don't grow up to be mature and stand on their own feet, they don't become independently able to maintain themselves, then the parents continue to support, thinking that it is my responsibility and duty. And in this way, being entangled, they are unable to come out of household life. So they cannot devote themselves for Krishna consciousness completely, even though they should have handed over charge of family maintenance to their grown-up children. But they are either not able to do it, or somehow they are badly entangled. So therefore, Prahlad Maharaj says, Hitva, please give up such a householder life, especially if it is like a blind well. Please give up. Because if one doesn't give up, it is Atmapatam. Hitvatmapatam. Atmapatam means it is soul killing. Soul killing. Soul killing means the soul cannot be killed. The soul is eternal, spiritual by quality. But the spiritual urge of the human being is almost completely destroyed when one becomes badly entangled in household life. So therefore, the Shastras say, Prahlad Maharaj instructs us in Bhagavatam, give up such soul-killing householder life. And do what? Vanam gato. Go to the forest. Get out of such a dark householder existence. Go to the forest. What type of forest? Not merely some place which is a remote place away from village, town and city. No. Yad Harimashrayeta. Go to that forest where you can take shelter of the Supreme Lord Hari. That means go to Vrindavana, not just Vana. Go to a sacred place, holy place. So, in the modern context, Srila Prabhupada says, it is not practical to leave home. Of course, one place Prabhupada says, all retired people are invited to come to our ISKCON temple in Vrindavan and live there peacefully, simply being engaged in devotional service and perfect one's devotional service to go back home, back to God. Another place Prabhupada says, nowadays it is not very practical to leave home and go to the forest, because even forests have become polluted due to the influence of Kali. So better to make one's home a temple. Better to make one's home a temple. And even Narottam Das Thakur says, Grihe thako, vane thako, sada hari bole dako. Same thing. He says, you may not be able to quit home, but make your home a temple. How do I do that? Constantly engage in chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It doesn't matter where one is situated. If one simply takes up this chanting of Hare Krishna by the blessings and mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one can make that place a holy place, a sacred place. And even living there, if one simply engages in devotional service, then one can perfect oneself and go back home, back to God. So, Vanam gato yad harimashrayeta means don't live at home like a grihamedi. Live like a grihastha, but after some number of years, give up householder duties by handing over charge of all such responsibilities to grown-up children or guardians. And you simply engage exclusively in devotional service. So that is the essence of Vanaprastha and Sannyas. Vanaprastha stage is to detach from household attachments, family attachments. And when one is fully detached, then one accepts sannyas. But what is sannyas? Sannyas is renunciation for the sake of fully engaging in devotional service. What is the obstacle for fully engaging in devotional service in any other stage of life? It is the different attachments, material attachments. So, if one gradually becomes detached materially, even staying at home, even staying in a village or a town, doesn't matter. By practicing Krishna consciousness, if one becomes gradually detached, then when one is detached almost completely, one correspondingly should engage fully in devotional service. Relinquishing family responsibility does not mean that just give it up and do nothing. Giving up family duties for the sake of fully or more fully engaging in exclusive devotional service. That is the spirit of sannyas. That is the spirit of sannyas. There is no need to officially accept sannyas, or there is no need to leave home and go away to some forest. No, that is not practical for everybody. So for everybody, what is practical is engage more fully, exclusively in devotional service, wherever you are staying. And in that way, perfect yourself. So that is the instruction given by Srila Prabhupada. I'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jaya. Srila Prabhupada ki jaya.